questions as great as money. People have cheated and scammed their way to money since the dawn of humanity. And these 3 stories are about people who did it in front of audiences and cameras. Who wants to be
Wait. Are they talking about me? Okay, I'll stop coughing.
a Millionaire was one of the most popular TV shows in the UK when it first aired in the late 90s. At its peak, it was pulling in almost 20 million viewers each episode. The concept was simple. Contestants would be asked a series of increasingly difficult multiple-choice trivia questions. The more questions they answered correctly, the more money they would win. It was the first TV game show to have a prize as large as £1 million. On September 9th, 2001, former British Army Major Charles Ingram was selected to be a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. His wife, Diana, and her brother, Adrian, had both appeared on the show and won £32,000 each.
Not
Diana
bad.
and her family were obsessed with Millionaire and were active members of various online forums where game show enthusiasts would share advice. The Millionaire set was unique as it was an amphitheater layout. The hot seat was in the middle of the stage. The standby contestants sat along the perimeter of the stage, while a live studio audience surrounded the stage. Charles's wife Diana was in the audience watching. Charles had finally made it to the hot seat after 2 failed attempts at fastest finger first, the preliminary game the contestants must win for a chance to play for the main prize. Charles answered the first 5 questions with little difficulty and secured £1,000.
There you go.
The lights dimmed and the music slowed down for the next stage of questioning. On question 6, Charles had to use his Ask the Audience lifeline, then use his Phone a Friend lifeline on the very next question.
Okay, Charles has got... Ah!
God, no.
A klaxon signified the end of the episode and filming was over for the day. Charles would return the next day to continue playing and filming. Producers didn't believe Charles would go much further as he had used 2 of 3 lifelines quite early in the game.
Wait, are you serious? You used... Oh my god, is this XQC?
Millionaire had been running for a few years at this point, so producers knew when contestants were above or below average. Charles was below average. However, the Ingrams had a plan. The following day, filming resumed. Charles had returned to the hot seat, and Diana watched in the audience. The same standby contestants took their positions as well. One of those standby contestants was Tequin Whittick. He was another game show
Tequin Whittick? Wait, is that an actual name?
superfan, and the Ingrams had recruited him for their plan. Host Chris Tarrant read out question 8. This is the moment the cheating began. Charles pondered the question, reading aloud each possible multiple choice answer. When he read out answer C, a soft cough was heard from somewhere on set.
Aristotle Onassis.
Charles locked in his answer, C. Chris Tarrant announced he was correct. This was the plan the Ingrams had cooked up the night before with Tequin Whittick. Charles would take his time deliberating each multiple choice option and read them all aloud. When he landed on the correct answer, Tequin would cough as a signal, and Charles would lock in the answer.
Is it cheese from which country? I want to say Switzerland.
At question 10, a critical milestone.
No,
both
you
Charles
didn't
and
answer
Tequin
it.
were stumped. The camera caught Diana in the audience, glancing over at Tequin several times. Charles used his final lifeline, 50-50, to eliminate 2 possible answers. But he was still struggling and Diana was visibly frustrated. Charles was leaning strongly towards answer C, but didn't lock it in, possibly because he still hadn't heard a cough. He continued to toss up between the 2 options, and when he said answer D out loud, a cough was heard from the audience.
A1 or Craig David.
It was Diana.
What if she's a smoker? She looks like a smoker.
I'm gonna go for A1. Yep.
Final answer.
No. I mean, I'm 80% of the time I'm wrong when I guess, so... No, I'll go Craig David. Yeah.
Final answer.
I'm going to guess Craig David.
Charles did a complete 180 and locked in D.
You just won £32,000.
Oh my god,
Alarm bells were ringing for
32,000.
producers. Charles's manner of deliberating between all the answers, leaning toward one answer then suddenly flipping and locking in the correct answer, was simply not normal. He didn't exhibit any of the normal body language either. Sound technicians were alerting producers of unusual patterns of coughing, but filming proceeded. Charles continued getting each question right. Producers knew something was off, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what.
They're like, oh shit, he's gonna win $1 million. Oh no.
Charles and Tequan were also both getting more confident in their system. Other standby contestants claimed that Tequan would whisper to his neighbor and ask what the answer to the questions were. At one point, Tequan even whispered the word no, masked under a cough, to directly communicate with Charles. Charles Ingram would go on to
No.
answer all 15 questions correctly and win the £1 million. Behind the scenes, it was chaos. The
Dang.
crew and producers knew some form of cheating had just occurred and didn't know how to react to Charles's supposed win. The heads of Celador, the show's production company, were trying to figure out what to do. Frantic phone calls were being exchanged immediately following the taping. The search of Charles's hair, clothing, and shoes was conducted, and he was informed that his payment was being withheld. Charles denied any wrongdoing. Security guards notified the crew that Charles and Diana were having an argument in their dressing room. The Ingrams didn't request to contact their 3 children about the good news, but instead seemed tense and unhappy. While Charles and Diana were fighting backstage, Tequan Whittick won fastest finger first and took his place in the hot seat. His cough had disappeared. The tapes were reviewed thoroughly over the next few days, and it was concluded that Charles was being fed correct answers through a system of coughs from Tequan Whittick and Diana Ingram. 1 week later, all 3 were arrested for procuring the execution of valuable security by deception.
Oh
In
no.
March 2003, the Ingrams and Whittick all pleaded not guilty. Charles defended himself, stating that he simply knew all the answers. Tequan claimed he suffered from hay fever and allergies his whole life and had a consistent cough. Other standby contestants testified that Tequan did not cough before filming or during breaks. After a 4-week-long trial, a jury found the Ingrams and Whittick guilty.
Oh.
They all managed to escape jail time. Charles and Diana each received an 18-month suspended sentence, while Tequan Whittick received a 12-month suspended sentence. All 3 were also fined and ordered to pay back court costs. Before we get into the
That's it?
next story, please consider subscribing and giving this video a like.
Wait, that's it?
In the 1950s, television became ubiquitous across American households. Quiz shows quickly became the most popular TV genre. On nights that popular shows were on, the streets were silent because everyone was at home watching. People who had won large amounts of money became instant celebrities and would even land brand endorsements. These quiz shows all had major sponsors who could pull strings behind the scenes. They would let shows producers know if certain contestants were popular or unpopular because their sales would be affected. Eventually, producers would begin to manipulate the questions and rig the shows to keep popular
Is this nostalgia for you, Echo? Bro, shut the fuck up. I wasn't even born this time.
contestants around for as many weeks as possible and keep the sponsors happy. The game show 21 aired on NBC from 1956 to 1958. 2 contestants would compete against each other to correctly answer enough trivia questions to score 21 points. When the show first aired, the game was played honestly, but the contestants failed to answer most questions. The show's sponsor, Geritol, demanded changes to boost the show's ratings. As a result, 21 would become the first show to completely script and choreograph all of their broadcasts.
Bruh, I cannot see this friggin' 480p TV.
Not only were contestants told all the questions and answers, but they were coached on body language and told exactly when to touch their face or hesitate to appear stressed. They were also told when to answer incorrectly on purpose. Herb Stempel was a middle-class city college student from New York when he joined 21 as a contestant. The producers gave him a Marine-style haircut and a shabby, ill-fitting suit to make him look like a poor GI. The show cast him to be an underdog. They told him when to pause, when to start breathing heavy, and when to mop his brow. Herb Stempel recalls that he would sit down with the producers
What the heck?
in their office each week, and they would show him all the questions and answers and rehearse all of his movements.
What?
As the weeks went on, Herb Stempel kept up his winning streak. His celebrity also grew. He received fan mail, strangers began to recognize him on the street, and his family, friends, and college professors were all proud of him. However, his ratings began to drop, and the sponsor and producers of 21 knew it was time to find a new star. Herb Stempel agreed to take a dive and end his run on the show in exchange for a job in television. Charles Van Doren, an English instructor at Columbia University,
Bro, he has a big head. Oh my god.
was selected to be Herb's successor. Over the next 6 weeks, Charles was portrayed as the classy,
Bro, look at that head. I don't know, like, we gotta get rid of the hair. I don't even, like, how big is his head?
intellectual with a family of well-known writers. The lines had been drawn, and Charles was the new hero of the show. Week after week, producers would make sure the competition was close and would result in draws. On December 5th, 1956, host Jack Barry asked Herb Stempel the question,
What motion picture won the Academy Award for 1955?
Herb knew the answer was Marty, as that was one of his favorite films, but he did as he was instructed and incorrectly answered.
On the waterfront? No, I'm sorry, the answer is Marty. Marty.
Herb
Dang.
Stempel went home with $69,500, which is the equivalent of about $760,000 today. Charles Van Doren's scripted triumph of Herb Stempel was viewed by 15 million people. Charles stayed on the show for 4 more months, armed with correct answers provided by producers.
Bro, look at his head. It's like a GameCube.
And he became one of the most beloved celebrities in the country. He went home with a total of $129,000 in winnings, which
That's
is
it?
equivalent to $1.4 million today. He graced the cover of Time magazine and signed a $50,000 a year contract with NBC's Today Show.
Whoa.
Meanwhile, Herb Stempel never got the TV job he was promised and faded into Charles's shadow. Herb was resentful and wanted to whistleblow, but journalists were concerned about getting sued for libel. However, concrete evidence of rigging had been discovered on another game show, Dotto, and Herb was finally taken seriously. The floodgates opened and game shows were being exposed and taken off the air. In August 1958, a grand jury convened in New York City to investigate the allegations of fixing game shows. At the time, fixing a game show was not technically a crime. Producers of several different game shows denied the allegations. Former contestants were called to testify, but didn't want to ruin their reputations, so many of them denied being coached or given answers. A prosecutor on the case estimated that of the 150 sworn witnesses, only 50 told the truth. After a 9-month grand jury, no indictments were handed down and the judge sealed the report. Congressional hearings began on October 6, 1959, and Charles Van Doren confessed to the deception he took part in. Charles, along with a producer and 17 other contestants, were charged, arrested, and convicted of lying under oath to the New York grand jury. They all received suspended sentences and didn't spend any time in jail. Congress amended the Communications Act to prohibit the fixing of televised contests of intellectual knowledge or skill, and President Eisenhower signed the bill into law on September 13, 1960.
Whammy.
Michael Larson was an ice cream truck driver from Ohio who was obsessed with TV game shows.
Yeah, he does look like an Ohio guy.
In the 1980s, he had set up several TVs in his living room so he could watch multiple game shows at once. One of his favorite shows was Press Your Luck on CBS. It was a high-energy show that involved 3 contestants who would answer trivia questions for the chance to spin for prizes on the big board.
Is that the stop guy? I think so.
The big board consisted of 18 tiles and rotated through cash prizes and other prizes such as holidays and jewelry, as well as whammies. During a player's spin, the light would rapidly flash between the tiles and the player would slam their button to make the light stop. They would win whatever prize they landed on, or if they landed on a whammy, they would lose all their winnings. Michael Larson recorded episodes of Press Your Luck and studied them closely at home, eventually working out that spins operated on 5 patterns. He deduced that the 4th and 8th tiles always had a cash prize and never any whammies. He also figured out which tiles gave extra spins. In
Oh.
1984, Michael used most of his savings to fly to LA to audition for Press Your Luck and was selected to be a contestant.
Ooh.
Michael started off poorly, answering trivia questions incorrectly and hitting whammies, and ended the first 2 rounds in last place. However, Michael hit a stride in round 2. He earned 7 spins on the big board and focused on hitting tiles 4 and 8. He won several times in a row, bumping his score to over $10,000. He had also won a trip to Hawaii and a sailboat. The show usually cut to commercials when contestants hit a whammy, but because Michael was hitting prize after prize, the show had to keep filming. For the first time, the show could not end at its usual 30 minutes,
What?
and the episode had to be split into 2 parts. Host Peter Tamarkin, the other contestants, and the studio audience were astounded at Michael's amazing win
Bro, that guy on the left, he's like, man, I wish I got $40,000. Holy shit, man.
streak. Michael kept slamming the button and landing on cash. His total was now creeping up to $100,000.
What?
Peter Tamarkin half-jokingly begged Michael to stop, fearing he'd land on a whammy and lose all his money. Michael finally decided to pass on his spin when he reached $102,851.
Bro.
again! Go again!
Now.
You can hear a pin drop. 5,000 and a spin. You're gonna cash him. I don't even know who the hell we're gonna take. Maybe first things here.
Bruh.
He had spun 40 times in a row without hitting a whammy.
40 times. Dude. Okay. Did the producer do anything?
Producers were extremely suspicious. They knew something was not right, as the average contestant would hit a whammy every 6 spins. Meanwhile, the audience was going wild and gave Michael a standing ovation. His competitor spun 6 times before passing her remaining spins back to Michael, in a strategy to make him possibly hit a whammy. Michael remarked that he didn't want the spins, but made 3 winning spins anyway. In total, he had won $5,287 worth of prizes and $104,950 in cash, which is equivalent to just over $300,000 today. It was the largest one-day total ever won on a game show at the time.
Holy.
Producers and network heads immediately accused Michael of cheating and withheld his winnings. The tapes were being reviewed carefully. They noticed that Michael would celebrate immediately after many of his spins, rather than a second later when the tile was revealed to be a prize. Michael argued that he had not cheated, and sure enough, there was no clause in his contract that prohibited players from simply learning the patterns. CBS reluctantly paid Michael his winnings and also reprogrammed the big board.
Oh, he got the bag.
Michael returned to his Ohio home and used his new fortune to make some real estate investments. In November 1984, he heard a local radio show competition. A random $1 bill's serial number would be read out and the person with the matching bill would win $30,000. Michael withdrew his remaining winnings in $1 bills and examined each one over the course of several days. When he discovered he did not have the matching bill, he redeposited roughly half of the money. He left $50,000 in cash in his house,
What?
which was then stolen in a burglary while he was out at a Christmas party.
Oh, that's what you get for living in Ohio. God damn it. Oh, that sucks.
His investments didn't pan out, and soon Michael was running out of money. He pitched a Tournament of the Champions show to the Press Your Luck producers, but they declined.
Oh yeah, of course.
In 1995, Michael became part of one of the first internet scams. He sold shares on what the Security and Exchange Commissions called a fraudulent multi-level marketing scheme. Essentially, a Ponzi scheme. The scam raised $1.8 million from 14,000 investors. Michael was wanted by the SEC, the IRS, and the FBI, so he fled to Florida. He would live out the rest of his days there until he died in 1999 at the age of 49 due to throat cancer.
Oh,